Glow by When X Christ X Returns X. My fondest memories were from growing up by the coast. My family and I lived in a small house on the beach. The waves helped make my days fun, and the gentle songs soothed me to sleep at night. There was a particularly strange day I heard an urban legend about a mysterious deep blue. It was in an area not far from my home, a place no one dared to venture in far. The waters had seemingly gone unexplored for years. I never saw a soul there. The rumors bothered me a bit, since a girl I once knew vanished there. The legend claims if you swim in said waters, you won't return. This myth quickly spread over town, but I didn't pay much attention to it. Just kids trying to scare each other. I would come down near the forbidden beach occasionally, observing from a distance. There would usually be some teens huddled around watching a brave friend test the myth, swimming out far into the dark waters. They never seemed to shimmer or glisten like the rest of the ocean, too dark to see through. I paid no mind to the loud, rambunctious kids. I mainly came to reminisce in memory of the girl who had disappeared here. She was a gentle soul, always smiling and caring for others. My friend was there for me when I needed her help. I just wish I could have saved her that awful night she perished. Her presence had disappeared without a trace, leaving us to presume she was dead. I used to have a strong passion for surfing, but ever since her death, I developed a bitter hatred for these waters and abandoned my wave-riding ways. The ocean and I were no longer one, but I managed to distract myself with training Pokémon. Since I tried to stray my focus from the deep blue, I moved to town, and primarily trained grass and fire-type Pokémon. I became indulged in the life of the big city, investing into a small house with a beautiful garden, pushing away the grim memories of the lethal waters. My grass Pokémon Ivysaur, Vileplume, and Weepinbell enjoyed the sweet aroma of the magnolia blossoms and passion vines I had grown myself. The backyard my garden resided in made for a great training area they could be comfortable in. For my fire Pokémon, Growlithe, Magmar, and Ninetales, I would take them to hotspots formed by a volcano near the island. They enjoyed the warm environment, and there were plenty of vacation space for them to exercise in. Things were going very well away from the beach. Then, one morning I noticed some posters spread across town reporting a missing teenager. I recognized her as one of the kids who had been venturing near the forbidden waters. I continued on my way, not thinking much of it, investing the day into adding some new sweet pea flowers to my garden and training my grass Pokémon. Things seemed at peace, although there was some slight discomfort. The image of the missing girl's poster was still fresh in my mind as I laid in bed that night. An unusual flicker of color caught my eye, and I rose from my bed to look out the window at an ominous red light. From this distance, it was so small it resembled a mere star. I assumed it was a traffic light and returned to bed. My mind began to wonder if something lurked below those waters that may have caused the disappearance, but only briefly. I pushed it away from my thoughts and drifted into slumber. A few days later, I noticed a small group of police moving towards the coast. Onlookers gathered around to watch. I followed as they headed towards the beach and stopped by the forbidden waters, setting up a perimeter of police tape. The one who looked to be the leader held up a megaphone, announcing that the area was no longer available to the public, and that 3 people vanished last night near these waters. 2 police officers would be securing said location until further notice. My heart sank. I went home wondering what had happened to the victims and where they were. Not feeling very safe for the rest of the day, I would look over my shoulder once in a while and keep my trusty Growlithe by my side if I went out. I had trouble focusing while training my Pokémon that evening. They seemed to notice and become a bit frustrated with me. I apologized and tried my best to concentrate, but my mind was lost in a sea of questions about disappearances. That night, I decided to leave Growlithe out of its Pokéball to help guard the house. Perhaps I was being a bit too paranoid, but I was never one to take chances. Growlithe sat by my bed, which helped put me at ease and allowed me to fall asleep without many worries. I awoke abruptly to find Growlithe by a window, growling loudly at something. I nervously rose from bed and hurried over to see what the trouble was. I saw nothing outside, feeling confused until I saw a tiny red star of light in the distance. This time, I knew it wasn't from a traffic light. It glowed with an unnatural brightness, almost painful to gaze at. Putting on some street clothes and bringing a flashlight, I quickly pursued the light to discover its source. I gradually found that it was coming from the ocean, near the shore. I broke out in a rapid sprint to greet it, reaching the beach. I was immediately stopped by the 2 police officers. I protested that something was there, as my Growlithe bared its teeth and growled at the water. It stopped as the small beam of red light faded below the surface, and the policeman inspected the surrounding area to find nothing and told me to go home, seeming rather annoyed. I returned home, certain I had seen something. That night was a restless one for me. I just had to know what the source of that mysterious light was. Eventually, I managed to fall into a troubled slumber, my heart pounding with anxiety and fear. I was woken by Growlithe once again. This time, it was barking loudly and scratching at the window. Peering outside, I could see the light once more. My overwhelming curiosity got the best of me again. Growlithe led the way as we raced towards the shore as fast as our feet would take us. We came to a screeching halt when we discovered the policemen had disappeared. Their officer hats lay in the sand near the forbidden waters. The glowing light did not shy away into the night this time. Growlithe's throat rumbled with a low growl as it neared the water. The dog let out a frightened whimper as the light grew stronger. I was about to step by it, when over a dozen long tentacles rose from the water. Pointing directly at me, they lunged forwards, but Growlithe leapt into action and attacked, its furious growl returning as it bit into the tentacles aggressively. They easily overpowered the animal and submerged it under the surface. I quickly dove in after Growlithe to find it unconscious, a tentacruel holding it firmly. I felt another set of tentacles tightening around my limbs, and my body being dragged down to a dark figure as I gasped for air. I stopped struggling when I saw that it was a little girl I knew who had died years ago. The red glow was coming from a red crystal attached to her forehead. The tentacles that attacked Growlithe were streaming from her scalp. Her body appeared to endure some decay, bearing a sickly green hue. There was some sort of transparent purple gel protecting it from further decomposition. Her eyes were black, lacking pupils and irises. As the gel surrounded my body, I miraculously sucked in air. I heard her voice calling out to me. "This will preserve your tainted life for a short time." Her body glided closer as I noticed Growlithe was being taken deeper into the water. "Where are they going with my Growlithe?" I asked. "Where all the others go. Below, to be reborn. There is no questioning the will of the Tentacruel." "Tentacruel, but you're a girl," I said, confused. This body is a vessel possessed by a dying Tentacruel. We will use the bodies of others to become immortal." Her voice was completely monotone, almost robotic. Her face appeared to be blank, void of life or expression. "We? What do you mean, we?" I noticed a swarm of red dots slowly approaching in the distance. Dark shapes followed, gradually revealing dozens of tentacle-bearing human bodies. They all appeared to be just as lifeless and decayed as her. "You should be thanking us. We will give you a new life, a better one," the girl said. "You can't do this," I declared, raising my voice. "Humans have no value. Your time is now ours. Become us. Become one." An ordinary Tentacruel appeared to the girl's left, gazing at me. "Do not be afraid. Death is only a moment of pain." The Tentacruel burst through the gel, pulling my body into the darkness below. I panicked as my mouth sucked in water, desperate for air. I could feel my heart pounding harder than ever, an overwhelming pain in my chest. Then, my pulse began to slow as I grew dazed and drowsy. There was a sense of peace in my body. I had never felt so relaxed before. There was no more pain. I was facing upwards, looking at the surface. The last thing I saw before my eyes closed was the moon, growing smaller as I descended into a watery abyss. That was Glow. Final thoughts? I don't know. I hardly have an idea of what to say about this story. It's well written and a very unique idea, but it's not really Pokémon. I mean, there are Pokémon in it, but it doesn't have to be Pokémon. It seems like the Pokémon were kind of an afterthought. I mean, let's replace the Tentacruel who possessed the girl with an alien who crash-landed in the water a long time ago and did the same thing. Would any of the story change? Yeah, the main character's Growlithe plays a point in the story, but everything it does is the exact same as a dog, so it could have just been a dog. Replace it with that. He says he trains grass Pokémon, but they never play any role in the story. If you completely deleted those lines from the story, it wouldn't be any different. The story isn't bad, it just isn't Pokémon. This could have been anything. That's it for this week. Tune in again next week when we tackle yet another creepypasta written by our very own community over on the Creepypasta section of my forum. If you'd like to write your own creepypasta, help review others, or just read them early, check out the description where you'll find a link to the Creepypasta section of my forum. Keep in mind when you're writing a creepypasta, it does not have to be a Pokémon creepypasta. The only reason we've had so many on the show, in fact, I think entirely Pokémon creepypasta, is because no one's writing anything else. In the description you'll also find a playlist of every other creepypasta I've read. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, sweet dreams.